Hey you guys and welcome. This video is on the plugin Mob Catcher, and this is suggested by someone and their name and comments popping up on your screen right now. Basically, Mob Catcher lets you capture any mob and you can set everything in the config. It's really customizable. So you can actually change the projectile item. By default it's an egg. I'd probably leave it as egg because it makes most sense. And you can actually set an item that's needed to capture the mob as well. So for instance, for this one I've set all passive mobs to gold ingot and all hostile mobs to a diamond. And you can also set a capture rate, so for instance the chance can be 50%. You could even use a vault cost, so it takes essentials money away or something like that. You can set the item, so how many of the item. For instance, I've just got it set to 1, but you could have it set far higher. So there's loads and loads of different things you can change. There's a simple config and an advanced config. The advanced config, you can actually set every single mob to have a different item as well. I find it easier just to have passive and peaceful different, but I mean, you could set everyone differently if you wanted to. I mean, it would make for a great server. But it does remember everything about the mob as well. So for instance, if I spawn a sheep and dye it, then capture the mob, as you can see it took one of my gold ingot away. But when I hover over it, it says the colour's purple, the age of the sheep is adult, and it even remembers the health. So if I throw it out again, dye it a different colour, capture it again, as you can see it failed because the capture rate. And then pick it up again, hover over it, you can see that it's now a grey sheep. Same works for hostile mobs, and you can actually throw potions at them as well. So for instance, this has now got regeneration and swiftness. So if I capture him, well, come on, capture, there we go. As you can see, the rate was only 20% on them. So I'd suggest setting it to something like that. Obviously you don't want players to capture them really easily. So now if I look at this, you can see that it's got regeneration and speed. It's also got 16 health. So if I throw it out again, it will spawn and it's got them effects still. Obviously if I capture it again, I can show you. Maybe I can't because I haven't got any eggs. Die. Ah! Obviously make sure you have enough eggs to actually capture the mob, because obviously in that example I didn't. But I think it's a great plugin, obviously very useful on servers. You can set the item per mob, which I think is a great feature. And obviously you can disable mobs as well. For instance, you wouldn't want players to be able to capture the Ender Dragon, so that is off by default. You could enable it if you wanted to, and you can disable any mob. You could also set the vault cost, which I think is a very useful feature. And I know this is a much easier way for players to actually be able to make farms in their houses. So I know it's really hard to sometimes get mobs back. To get a sheep to follow you miles and miles. If your house is up in a cliff, it's far harder. So obviously this plugin solves that. Another really cool feature about this plugin is the signs. You can actually have a protection sign. So you put down a sign and you put on it Mob Catcher. And then you just name the sign. So for instance, I'll call this one Test. And as you can see, it's created a radius of 10 for Nene 90. So any mob that I've placed inside my 10 radius, so obviously I put this next to my farm, no one else can capture. And you can place up to 3 of these signs. So if I just place a few, and as you can see, the 4th one failed, so you can only create up to 3 of these. Obviously ops can override that and you can actually change it in the config file, but I think 3 is a good amount. Obviously if you've got a farm bigger than that radius, you've obviously done quite well, and you can probably afford to lose the mobs, because that is actually a massive radius. I mean, you're going to have a really big farm if you can protect that area. I think it's a great plugin. It's really configurable. I definitely think there's uses for it for servers. There'll be a download link to it in the description below. And as always guys, please remember to rate, subscribe and comment. Cheers!